Hello. So yeah, sorry, well, you can actually hear bombing there. I believe it's outgoing. So the situation in Kyiv at the moment is there's continued bombing of residential areas, and the reason that is because on the outskirts of the city, there's still a lot of fighting that's going on in areas like Irpin and Bucha. In these areas now, the Ukrainians are reporting that they're actually taking over these areas and they're in control 70%, pushing back the Russian artillery and their rockets currently at the moment. So there, you can hear I believe is outgoing actually there now. So the situation is still very tense, but morale is still very high amongst the Ukrainians because they're taking a fight back to the Russians.
Yeah, it does sound like they're turning the tide. Have they got the sustenance to sustain it?
Yeah, so in Kiev, it seems like they're turning the tide on the battle. Is that the Russian military is tired, exhausted. Morale was reported very low, and I'm hearing that from several civilians that have left areas where they've been around Russian soldiers, saying that there's not enough food. They don't really want to fight this war. So really, in this area, the tide seems to be turning, but in other areas, especially in the east of the country, things are very different.
You have filmed in the trenches in the area, and trench building was part of the orbital training British troops gave to the Ukrainians. How valuable has that been?
Yeah, the training that the British forces and other Western allies have given to these Ukrainians is second to none. I was here after the war in 2014, and the military is very different to what you see now, currently in 2022. Being British and being a former military Royal Marine myself, is that Ukrainians are very open. They always say, God save the Queen to me. They respect, because a lot of them have been through the training from the Brits. There's lots of in-laws here. They know the rhetoric from the UK is very on side with Ukraine. So really, the soldiers here are very supportive of the British troops and the British public back in the UK. And
what are you hearing from elsewhere around the country?
Yeah, so the situation, like we're saying here, is that the Russians are trying to push into Kiev. They're being repelled for the time being. Over in the east, especially in Mariupol, an area I've been to, I filmed my last documentary down in that area. The situation is very different, where the city is encircled. One of my friends, he's a British guy. He fought in Syria with the YPG, and now he's been in the Ukrainian military for the last 3 years. And today he's only just popped back up on social media saying he's alive. And like the information that's coming out there, because the city's encircled by the Russians, there's street-to-street fighting there, is that there's thousands of civilians trapped. People are scrounging for food and for clean water, and it's a pretty dire situation. But the reason why the Russians have got such an influence there is because they've got a large build-up of troops from Crimea that have pushed up into Mariupol area and pushed south from Russia. So that's the reason why. Kiev is very different in the sense that the Russians are away from their border here, and potentially there's a lot of talk are the Belarusian forces going to join this war with potentially 20,000 troops that are going to push south to then push onto Kiev? But at the moment, no one knows.
And Emile, there are reports that Ukraine is running out of weaponry, in particular anti-tank weapons. How real is that concern?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of in-laws that have been supplied here, and every time I meet one of the soldiers, they show me and say, Britain, 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 Boris Johnson, Boris Johnson. So I wouldn't say there's a massive shortage, but of course they want more weapons. Of course they do, because these in-laws are fire, and then discard is also, so as people that know, it's just one rocket inside it. So they want more because the armor and the way that the Russians are fighting is very heavily Soviet mentality, with large-scale armor pushing, especially down roads, because the ground's too soft for them to go across country. So the Ukrainian soldiers here want as many weapons as they possibly can get, especially anti-tank weapons, so they can engage these columns of tanks. Also, I've been with a former British soldier who's training a local militia group, a local volunteer Ukrainian group, on how to do anti-armor ambushes. And what their plan is in the next few days is to go out to the north of the city and ambush these tanks that are static. And Ukrainians have been doing it very effectively, taking out certain elements of this armored convoy that we heard about to the north.
All right, Emile Ghessen, really appreciate your update. Thank you very much for your time.
Cheers, thanks.